So we've all heard of the Achilles heel, right? Right? I mean, mom takes little baby by the back of the heel, dips him in the river Styx, makes him invulnerable. But if he ever takes a hit to that one tiny spot in his body, lights out, right? Well, the Achilles heel is a fable, it's a myth designed to inelegantly explain the idea that the mortals can never be more powerful than the gods, and that pride goeth before a fall, right? Achilles is not perfect. Even an archer can take him out when he's sacking Troy. But the weakness evoked by the Achilles heel, the idea that even an all-powerful character can have some kind of thing, some kind of trait or part of their body or allergy can just decimate them, was interesting in the 50s and 60s, and sometimes a little later, in comic book history. Contemporary characters don't often have a weakness that's all-encompassing. Sometimes characters may have inherited a weakness if they're a legacy character from previous versions of that character, but oftentimes if a new character comes out, especially one within the last 20, 30 years maybe, they're going to be just fine given most circumstances. They can take damage, they can be defeated. That's not what I mean. What I mean is a weakness, something that effectively defeats the character automatically. A good example, probably the most famous example, would be Superman's weakness to kryptonite, the radioactive shards of his homeworld that crash landed on Earth and render him powerless, and with prolonged exposure, can kill him. Superman has a number of other weaknesses too, but nothing really evocative of the Achilles heel, right? A red sun can leach his cells of their yellow energy and render him back mostly mortal, but they're not going to kill him. It would require some other event to cause him to expire, bullets or falling or whatever. And magic, he's not invulnerable to magic, but he's still tough. He can still fight Captain Marvel, even though he's endowed by magic. He isn't particularly strong or invulnerable to harm from magic sources. So the Achilles heel are other characters like Superman. Superman's weakness is not that bad. It's not even that common, really. Kryptonite is not a Earth-made substance. It's directly from Krypton. It's in the name. Yeah, it's shown up a lot in comics over the intervening years since it was first introduced, by the way, in 1943 in the radio drama of Superman. Came out in comics 6 years later in 49. But the other weaknesses he has are more common, but again, they're not lethal. Kryptonite's pretty rare, so he kind of gets away with it. Not a particularly common weakness. But there are some characters in DC whose weaknesses are very common. In fact, why do they even have them as weaknesses, one might even say? They can be defeated through too common a circumstance, too plentiful an object. Let's talk about those ones. I have 5 for you, and an honorable mention that isn't DC, but DC is most known for this. Marvel has some weaknesses with characters, but not nearly as common and not nearly as stupid. So my 5 choices for you for DC are going to go in ascending order of stupidity. We're going to start at the bottom. Number 5 belongs to Alan Scott, the first Green Lantern. Alan Scott's powers are not derived from Oa and the power battery and Will. They're derived from the Starheart, which is a magical source that gave him his abilities way, way back in the day. Alan Scott's weakness with his ring is wood. Anything made of wood will bypass his defense, his shields. He can't pick it up, move it, affect it, destroy it. Wood represents the greatest weakness to the first Green Lantern. Wood is also a very plentiful substance, and at the time of his introduction, wood was used in clubs, wood was used in chairs, wood was used in all kinds of things that you could be battered over the head with or attacked by. Now, he was able to circumvent this weakness because he's a cunning superhero, but there are a number of panels of him getting walloped by a wood shillelagh or a baseball bat. Wood bullets also showed up in his comic a couple times, which is stupid for its own reason. But wood, a weakness to wood, common and stupid. But it's not the most common, nor is it the most stupid. For that, we need to move up to number 4, the weakness of the lesser well-known sort of Kryptonian analogs called the Daxamites. Now, you can be forgiven for not knowing who the Daxamites are. They are a race of pseudo-Kryptonian-like aliens that featured most prominently in the Legion of Superheroes comics. The character Mon-El, the character Sodom Yat, which is actually in the Green Lantern comics, but similar kind of idea. They are members of a race called the Daxamites, and under a yellow sun, like Kryptonians, they possess superhuman strength, the ability to fly, invulnerability, heat vision, the entire Superman suite of powers. However, their planet didn't blow up, nor are they affected by kryptonite for obvious reasons. Their weakness is lead. Just lead. Lead bullets, lead walls, lead knives, lead powder. Lead will kill Daxamites. So they don't leave their home planet, for obvious reasons. A few join the Legion or appear in other stories like Sodom Yat or Mon-El I mentioned before, but for the most part, they're a fairly introverted or insular species. Lead. Why lead? Well, their planet doesn't feature very much lead, so they never developed any kind of inherent built-up immunity to it. Their weakness is referred to as a lead allergy, and as we know on Earth, some allergies can lead to fatal doses of something that end up causing anaphylactic shock or death. Same thing holds true for Daxamite. The problem is, if they come to Earth or another planet and lead features prominently in their weapons, that's a dead Daxamite. Number 3 is another Green Lantern. In fact, it's all the other Green Lanterns. Pre-Crisis, the Green Lantern ring had a very famous weakness, and it's a really stupid one. The color yellow was their weakness, which means exactly what you think it means. Anything painted yellow, anything made yellow, anything resembling yellow, anything with yellow light or radiation, the Green Lantern ring couldn't affect it. There's so many examples in comics pre-Crisis of yellow things or yellow creatures or yellow weapons affecting the Green Lantern, and fewer examples of them being able to circumvent them by either dropping mud on something and picking it up, or picking up a piece of earth and throwing it at somebody without using the ring to touch that thing. Batman and Robin beat up Green Lantern by painting themselves yellow. That's how stupid this weakness is. Now, since Crisis, they've ruled out that weakness. It's no longer part of the new current ring structure. Kyle Rayner's ring, the last ring, didn't have that weakness when Ganthet created it, so because all the rings in current comics are derived from his original ring, none of them have it either. But there was a time, a good number of years in DC Comics, where simply the color yellow, or gold, or infra-yellow, orange, could defeat a Green Lantern. That's what we're talking about here. Now that's number 3. Number 2 is an even more prevalent substance, and something a lot of supervillains just use as their primary tool of trade. Fire. Fire is a weakness of the Martian Manhunter. How many villains, how many heroes even have fire as part of their abilities when fighting crime? A lot of them. A lot of them. On the Justice League, I can list at least 3. Martian Manhunter is not only weak to fire, he's afraid of it, so much so that he'll run from battle or become paralyzed with fear. Now, you may have a reason for it. Physiologically speaking, Martians are vulnerable to fire, and it can cause him some kind of panic episode. I get that, but it's fire. On Earth, fire is a pretty common substance. Fire comes out of weapons. Fire is made when weapons shoot. Fire is a power that supervillains have, and oftentimes, what happens when buildings are destroyed or things are attacked by other villains? Things get set on fire. To say that Martian Manhunter's weakness is stupid is doing a disservice to how stupid it is. Manhunter's a cool character, don't get me wrong. His abilities are extraordinary. He has every single power that Superman has, and more. Some people oftentimes forget that. He is mind-numbingly powerful, probably why they're balancing the scales with such a common and ridiculous weakness. Fire. But there you have it. And number 1. But before number 1, I have an honorable mention. One honorable mention, and it's from Marvel, and it's stupid. It's really stupid. In recent comic history, Wolverine's adamantium skeleton has been viewed as like a poison of the body, like mineral poisoning, like lead poisoning or mercury poisoning. Now, his current contemporary self doesn't seem to be affected by that yet, but there's so many stories in comics that foreshadow some kind of future event where Wolverine, either in the future or because of this, will either go insane, die, lose his powers, or be crippled. Dumb, right? That's dumb. Now, does it make sense? Sure. I mean, comic book writers are nothing if not able to create a rationale for what somebody did a long time ago. The adamantium thing for Wolverine has been in play for a long time. But it's still dumb. But it doesn't make the list, right? It's not that dumb. It's stupid, but it's not that stupid. Number 1 is so stupid. I'm glad they got rid of it, and they did so a long time ago, but it has to make the list. It has to make the list. Wonder Woman from antiquity. This is no longer a weakness that she shares, but from antiquity, Wonder Woman's weakness was being bound by a man. Would render her powerless, instantly defeated. What the hell is that? Talk about your stupid weakness. Now, the history of Wonder Woman is beyond the scope of this video and a turbulent, sordid affair in its own right. But that weakness, most villains of the time were men. Wonder Woman was not shown to have as much or as powerful a set of abilities as she does now, which means defeating her was not necessarily as problematic as it would be today. Wonder Woman is incredibly powerful today. For some random mook to just get the jump on her and bind her hands would be nearly impossible. In the 40s, 50s, and 60s, maybe not that hard. And then simply to be able to bind her and render her totally powerless, that's some grade A dumb bullshit. I don't know what to say other than I'm glad it's gone. There are a few other weaknesses that are kind of stupid. Thor not being able to let go of his hammer for more than 60 seconds, or Daredevil being yelled at will cause him to go into some kind of shock response. But those are A, Marvel, and B, not necessarily as common, and oftentimes were written out, just like the Wonder Woman one was. But the Wonder Woman one was so stupid, it had to make the list anyway. It's so stupid. But that's weakness. Now, why do these characters have weaknesses like this? Because DC characters are often viewed mythologically, whereas Marvel characters are often viewed as more contemporary. Those characters in Marvel have human weaknesses already, because most of them are presented to be fallible in many other ways. Peter Parker, Reed Richards, Steve Rogers, Tony Stark, they have human weaknesses also. Tony Stark has weakness of the heart and the bottle. Steve has a weakness of his conviction and inability to compromise. Peter has rent and money and other things associated with that, guilt. So they already have a complement of weaknesses that make those characters feel more real, more interesting in their own way. When a DC character needs to be defeated in battle, the character is not able to be sort of taken at laterally. They needed to be able to be balanced a different way. So DC went the route of having the Achilles heel. So with all these Achilles heels and all these weaknesses, which one is your least favorite, or maybe your most favorite? And which ones do you know of that I didn't list, that you think might have made the list had you made it? Let me know in the comments below, and we'll see you next time.